Well folks, we are back this morning and we did get quite a bit of rain. Kind of see here, the liner's all bubbled up down there. We've got standing water in there, so we got to pump that out. And it's a little sloppy out here, but it's kind of what we've been used to this spring so far.
Alright, we're slopping around in the mud yet again. It's been the story all spring long. We got a whole water bed underneath there. We're trying to drop in that bottom, which is all going to be that flagstone. So the idea behind this is people are going to come down those beautiful steps. They're going to have that nice smooth bottom over there. It's all going to be flagstone. Then we're going to transition from that into just a simple river rock bottom over here. We're also working on our negative edge basin over here. That negative edge concept, remember some of this stuff, we talked about it in the past. It's basically going to be a big underground reservoir. It's going to hold all the water in transit of everything. It's going to have our pumps and all that good stuff. It's going to be a waterfall coming across. Right over in this section, it's going to spill down facing the main drive-in. Thousands of people come in here on a daily basis. We want to make sure that they're going to see just a little glimpse of the waterfall. They're not going to see everything. This will all probably be heavily planted. They're just going to be greeted by that little bit of a waterfall coming in from that far end. Some of the challenges that we have here today, obviously we're cutting off our access by putting this reservoir in. The other thing is we have this massive bubble down in the bottom.
Whoa. Whoa.
See, I'm displacing stuff a little bit. You can see these things popping up. You can see a ripple going all the way through there. Once we dig that, this water may have a place to relieve. It might go all the way into our reservoir. We could pump it out there. If that doesn't happen, we might have to do a little surgery. What I mean by that is we're literally going to come in here, cut a hole right through this thing, allow all that pressure, allow all the water to come in, but then we'll do a simple fix. What we'll do once we drain all the water out, we'll make a nice watertight connection using one of our bulkhead fittings. We could just put actually a simple clean out pipe inside of there. That would allow us to evacuate any water out of here if we have future problems moving forward. So we are putting our sand down here in our rainwater system. So this is a 3,000 gallon tank, a large AquaBlox going in here. We have a little bit deeper spot, which is going to accept our pump vaults. So we'll get the liner and everything in there today. That'll all be prepared. We can get all that stuff in place. We'll fill it with water to get some weight on it. And then we can continue doing our stone work around that top edge. Down over in this section, we started getting the flagstones down here in the bottom. We got the stairs coming down into that little flagstone area. Problem was we couldn't keep going because we had a lot of hydrostatic pressure underneath the liner. And what I mean by that, you can kind of see this little bubble right over in here. Groundwater basically from all of this stuff sloping down. Heavy precipitation caused water to build up underneath the liner. So much so actually we had to cut a hole in it over here to relieve some of that pressure. Once we drain this down, we'll be able to patch that hole up. So a lot of stuff happening here this afternoon. So the sand is in and leveled. We have our pump vault over there. You can see that little depression. I want to point out that it's not right on an edge. What we try to do, especially on a system like this, of this scale, is we'll have AquaBlox going all the way around it. So that allows us to get some stonework and everything in the backside to hide it a little bit easier. Guys right now are grabbing our rubber liner, put that in position, put another layer of fabric over the top of it, and then we can start putting our AquaBlox in place. All the different layers are inside. Bottom has got sand. We have a layer of fabric under the liner, rubber liner, another layer of fabric on top. It sandwiches all in between. It protects everything. Pump vaults are the first thing to go in place because that sets the elevations for everything. I always put an extra panel in between the two. Kind of gives them a little bit of space and it allows you to take the tops on and off easier. Otherwise, those things will get compressed together and you'll be fighting those tops forever. The other thing that you want to look for is this elevation of this little foot right here is designed to support the AquaBlox, and I'm going to set that in position right now, but we want this elevation here to be level going across. So that's all set up, and now we're going to start laying all the AquaBlox in position. So we're staging everything and it should go in pretty quickly. So the key is to get sand evenly dispersed on all sides. You don't want to just dump it on one side, because what it'll do is it'll push those AquaBlox. So what we do is we slowly add it in all the way around the perimeter, put it under compression, and that's what gives us the desired weight bearing capacity. A little bit of an issue here is we just finished backfilling the entire AquaBlox area. So we got good compression, sand going all the way around. But during the excavation process between the pond and this reservoir, there was just a thin strip of soil right in here. I would have liked to have had more. Problem is we couldn't push this whole reservoir that way any further because of the existing concrete, because of the walkways and things like that. So we were kind of sandwiched in between a few things here. So that made this little strip of soil unstable, ended up falling in. So we eliminated it. And the reason why that little strip is important is because we want this liner to be held at this elevation. So let me peel this fabric away. The rubber liner is responsible for holding the water in place, not the stone. The stone is important because it's a hard structure. It gives us the look that we're looking for, as well as it creates the desired flat sheet of water coming in. So what we need to do now is we need to artificially create a barrier here to keep this rubber liner up as high as possible, because this is really what's responsible for holding the water in the pond. So what we're going to do is we're going to reestablish a section of soil here. But what's nice about this now that the excavation is done is we could actually pack the soil tightly against the rubber liner, which is going to create a nice seal as well as a structural edge for everything to hold in place. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take the rubber liner from our reservoir. That's going to come up this way. This one's going to go over the top. It's almost like a flashing. So just like shingles on a roof, the water's going to flow over and down. What you don't want to have happen, this liner come up and then the other one go in between it, because then you're going to lose water and you're going to have a big leak no matter how well you try to seal that joint. So what we're going to do is we're going to pack soil in here, take this liner, bring it up on this side, then take this one over the top to create that overlap. And then on this side, we're going to set another boulder, which is going to create our waterfall. It's going to be visible from that area. Got the flagstones going down on the bottom. That all is looking good. We're going to keep systematically working our way across towards those power heads. We are also going to cut a coping using that material around the top of those stack slate walls. This little edge over on this side is about complete. So you can see we've filled in that void now. So now we have our rock over here. We have the liner coming up nice and high over on that side. Now we're going to take this liner, come up, lay it down on top, and then fold that one back over it. So I know it's a slow process, but it's very effective, and it keeps us from doing seams and things like that. So once we get that in place, then we could start dropping in some of our big boulders on the edge, and then we'll start backfilling, changing the shape of this, because right now it's just a big giant box. Don't like the look of that. So what we're going to want to do is come in here and make this more irregular shape, drop in some big boulders and things like that. And here's going to be that view as people come driving in. We're going to drop down the elevation right here a little bit, kind of shave out some of that soil, and you should have a nice view of that waterfall. So here's our ridge of soil in between the two. We have our fabric coming up. We trim back our liner a little bit behind this boulder. Now what we're going to do is going to take the liner back over this way actually. So that encapsulates all of that soil. Keeps it good for us. Come over the top with our liner. Now we have the liner coming out of the pond, come this way, and it's going to overlap down. So again, this is that minimum 6 inches that we need from here to here. Yep. We have over a foot right now, which is good. I'd rather have a little bit more, but not enough. So that's going to get our water going in the right direction. The next steps are going to be drop in these rocks, this little spot in between. We're going to put either slate in here, could be river rock. We don't exactly know yet, but this will be disguised. We don't want to see that rubber liner. That's why we want to make sure that this is down below the top of this rock. This rock also is going to set water level. So the rock here needs to be either set exactly the same as this or slightly lower. So that'll ensure the water's going to go into the right direction for us. Then we'll come in afterwards, drop in a few big rocks, kind of frame out that waterfall. We're set. We have our 3,000 gallon reservoirs complete. We dropped in a bunch of big boulders. We kind of have that waterfall and everything roughed out, so that's looking good as well. We just have to add in a few small boulders and things like that here and there. Now we're gonna come in, start digging this wetland. Challenge with all of this, like all of our projects, is logistics. You know, how do you dig something without cutting yourself off? So we wanted to make sure we got all that big stonework done in that back section, because we're not gonna be able to get that big machine in. We're gonna have a little bit of a corridor over on the side over there for the dingo, maybe for our small excavator, just to sneak in there there to finish up some edge work and things like that. We have one snorkel. We have 2 centipedes coming off. Each one of these centipedes will have 16 AquaBlox going in and around it. So we'll use this center line. We have 2 going on either side. We're gonna have 3-inch connections coming in from the edge. So for the excavation, we're gonna be coming back 5 feet off of that center line to do our excavation all the way around this. I love this type of a shape because it's just a little bit more freeform. So you have that nice little flow to it. We're also gonna connect up directly into the pond. So Chris, you were telling me earlier, the design idea behind this was they didn't want a really big waterfall or anything coming out of the stream. They just want to make like an extension of the pond, which is a really, really cool look. So we're gonna actually seam onto the liner. So this will look like just a little backwater pocket, and that's gonna be feeding into the main pond area. So it's gonna be a really neat little look over in here. So we're gonna tweak this out a little bit. We're gonna mark it out. We're gonna dig it, take all this dirt, start building up for our berm, for our waterfall. Then we can start getting the AquaBlox in place, the liner, all the rock, the gravel, and then start finishing up this little pooling area. This is where we had a big bubble under the liner. So we had all that hydrostatic pressure from all the rains that we've been having the entire spring. When we cut the hole open in this, it drained all the water off from underneath the liner, alleviated the pressure, but now we have a big hole to deal with. So mud keeps coming out of the bottom of it. You can see all this dirty water. We keep pushing the mud out. So what we did was we just took a bunch of these rags and towels, we shoved them underneath there just to elevate this area above all of the water. So what that's going to allow us to do now is we can actually prime this, put a piece of tape on top of it. We're going to put tape, but we're still going to cut a hole in it, and we're going to allow a bulkhead fitting. This is going to allow us access in case we ever have issues with groundwater again. So by having that bulkhead fitting, we'll have a nice threaded connection. It's a compression joint. It's going to lock everything in place. So these are the same connections that we use inside of our filters. So this is tried and true technology. We have a soft gasket inside of there. What we do is we'll kind of thread this through. It's a little bit of a challenge, and that's because you have to get this in. You have to get this, this has to go on the bottom side. Put everything in place, and tighten it down inside of that. And now once we have a threaded connection, we can come in with a clean out plug. If we ever need to get to it again, we have access and we could drain all that water out. This is a EPDM primer. If you don't use this, it's not going to prepare the EPDM surface properly, and the liner patch will not stick. What this does, it's going to kind of soaks into the pores and everything inside of the rubber itself, and it's going to prepare it to accept the uncured EPDM rubber, which is what that patch tape is made out of. All right, so this is a big piece of the patch material, the cover tape. This is actually a 12-inch wide. What I'm going to try to do is put my thumb kind of right in the middle of that, so I know exactly where that hole is at. And then also I like to start from the center, working my way out towards the edges so I don't get bubbles. So the nice thing about this stuff is it's instant. Now you might actually ask why we put tape on over a hole to patch it. By putting the tape over the rubber liner, what that's going to do, it's going to allow you a little bit more rigidity in the liner. So when you come through it with a bulkhead fitting, what happens is sometimes when you're tightening it, the liner might want to get twisted or bunched up or something like that. This will help give it a little bit more structural rigidity, and it allows this process to go a lot smoother. Now that I have that tape in place, I'm going to come in. I have one of the rigid washers, just going to lightly mark this with our knife, and then I'm going to come through and I will cut it all the way out. Perfect little, there we go. Now we could actually extract our towels back out. So the rubber gasket normally goes on the side where the water is. It's not going to be possible in this application, and that's because we have to tighten it down from the top. So what we're going to do is we're going to be coming in from the bottom part with the rubber gasket in this one. See how nice and snug that is all the way around it. And that's why I use this the washer as the template, because it's actually the perfect size. You don't want the liner tight, because what happens is when you tighten this in place, it could catch on the tape. So now we have everything in place. I'm going to go hand tight way around. Always make sure you start out by hand tight. You could feel it if it's going to start to cross thread. Once you start going in, then you're going to be fine, but I always try to do things as much as possible. Alrighty. We're good. So you want to be careful with these because you could actually crack that fit. So now we have access in case we ever need it. Now we're going to come in here with river rock over the top of it. It's going to be a smaller river stone. There might be people walking in and around this, which is why we have flagstone down in here. So we're creating a lot of nice surfaces. Down in the bottom, we don't want big, giant, chunky rock and stuff like that. So we're going with a 3/4 minus, and then we'll kind of dress up around this top edge as well. We can start filling this in with water, get it wrapped up.